In this exclusive interview, we are honored to present Dr. Hanaa Almoaibed, Vice President of Research at the Arab Institute for Women's Empowerment and Education Pillar Chair at Johara Global. Dr. Hanaa is also a visiting research fellow at the London School of Economics and the King Faisal Center for Research and Islamic Studies. Conducted by Ms. Nomita Dar, Dr. Hanaa shares her insights on the changing landscape of education and women's roles in Saudi Arabia, the impact of Vision 2030, and opportunities for international collaboration. She also reflects on her personal journey and the balance between her professional and personal life.
Welcome, Hanaa, to Singapore.
Thank you.
It's an absolute privilege to see you and having this opportunity of knowing more about you. What brought you to Singapore this time?
So I was invited by the National University of Singapore's Middle East Institute. They had their annual conference, one-day conference that was focusing on education in the Arab Gulf states. So I was invited to come and present some of my research. I have a published chapter on vocational education and training in Saudi Arabia, and it was published in 2022, and so they wanted kind of an update on what's happening and how things have changed since then. Obviously, the research was done previous to that as well. The data that I presented, actually, I collected for my PhD back in 2016, and it was just the beginning of the launch of Vision 2030. And I spoke to hundreds of students that were in vocational training at that time. And you know, the one thing that hasn't really changed was the aspirations of young people. They've always been quite high. When you talk to young Saudis about what they want for their future, a lot of times they, the sky's the limit. But the difference was the opportunities were limited back in 2016.
Yes, right.
And they would talk about that. They're excited about their future, but apprehensive that they wouldn't really find opportunities. So what's really changed is today, the fields that young people go into and the opportunities to work in those fields are very different than they were 2016 and before. And that's evolved over time. In the past, several years, you've had new scholarships in different fields come up. You've had new ministries formed. Ministry of Culture, the Ministry of Tourism are both fairly new, and so they're new industries really. And the infrastructure that you need to really support an arts and culture industry or a tourism industry in terms of human power is very different. You need people with diplomas that can do very technical work and vocational work, and they need to be qualified to work in hospitality and to work in media and to work in different digital services. And these were all areas that people didn't really think about before because they didn't really see a future in them. So that's really shifting, culinary arts and so on. So the landscape has shifted, and the idea of a job for life as an engineer it's fading. So I can answer that question in many ways, but I think what I'd like to focus on is this kind of skills training that's happening within the kingdom, and the focus on kind of skills for the future and the idea of kind of this digital world that we're going into. Saudi Arabia is investing very heavily in artificial intelligence. Actually, I saw in one poll that Saudis are the most AI literate population globally, so they understand what it means and how to use it more than other kind of communities.
Interesting.
And I thought it was a very interesting poll as well. It was some international poll as well, but we can look it up. But it's a place where technology isn't feared, it's embraced. And it's used every day by everybody. I mean, we have kind of #1 consumption of YouTube per capita, which you might think is frivolous, but at the same time, people are on that for education a lot of the time.
Sure.
They're learning so much from whatever is available. And I think what is happening in the Saudi space is very interesting because you have these opportunities to learn. you have this forward and future looking kind of ecosystem that's continuing to grow. And you have an opening up of the spaces. People want people to come to Saudi Arabia. Universities now offer places to international students. Students are going abroad and studying and then coming back to Saudi Arabia and implementing some of what they learned. But you have this cultural exchange that's happening.
Absolutely.
With this digitally connected, plugged in, young, ambitious, and very excited young
And your population is so young.
It is. It is very young. So about 60% of the population is under 30 years
Wow.
old. So, you know, they're the future.
That's a
and
big,
they're
big
excited.
plus. Yeah, of course.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. You've honed the best degrees anybody can throughout the world. And while you were growing up, which is not too long ago, because you're very young,
You're very
was it hard for you as a woman to go out and get those degrees? And how has home changed while you were educating yourself?
So I've always been very lucky to have an incredibly supportive family. My father is the first kind of champion of my dreams, my ambitions, and has supported me throughout. So there's so much thanks to him. And my mother, of course, has always been by my side as well. So I didn't really struggle personally. That's not to say that there weren't struggles, right? And for me, I've always really just focused on kind of trying to build bridges between the world and Saudi and help people understand the confusion. So being abroad for as many years as I was, it's always easy to talk about Saudi Arabia. It may have been a little bit more difficult to sell the idea of Saudi Arabia in the past to people than it is today. Now I want to share so much more. I want to share all of the excitement and the energy that you feel when you go there with people, and I want them to come and visit. And in the past, I couldn't really ask them to come and visit because it wasn't very open.
Sure.
I would have loved to host friends from abroad and show them Saudi, but it was like harder to get a visa, harder to come in, but also harder to really get a feel for the culture.
True.
But now when you go, it really is very open to the world. I think that there's a lot of room for collaboration in commerce and industry. I think there are, probably some partnerships with different companies, but probably not enough. And I think that because of the energy sector being something that both countries are interested in, thinking toward renewables, thinking toward a greener future, a greener economy globally, that's an area where I hope to see more collaboration. I also think that, again, the other area really is in education and training, and thinking about how we can build new models in Saudi Arabia and learn from experiences, obviously not to replicate, but to learn from experiences on how to link industry more with the education sector in order to make sure that people are learning relevant skills for the labor market, but also that they're learning skills that they want to practice in the labor market.
True.
Obviously, sustainability is such a big word, and you can look at it in so many different directions. And countries in the world that produce oil, like Saudi Arabia, are often attacked as being less sustainable because of fossil fuels and fossil fuel production, consumption, and so on. And I think that Saudi Arabia has really made several kind of efforts and steps forward in investing in renewables and understanding that there needs to be an energy transition that will take time, but that needs to happen. And so, there's ambitions to be, kind of zero carbon. There's ambitions to plant more trees. I think a million, I want to say, is the target in Saudi. So it was a massive thing. But there's the Saudi Green Initiative. There's the Riyadh Green Initiative. There's all of these things that are happening in order to help that energy transition, which would enable us to become more sustainable. And I think what we miss, and what probably happens more here, is the interaction with nature. And so we might talk about it and we want to do it, and we're trying to make places a little bit more climate friendly within the kingdom. But people don't really spend that much time outside, and they don't interact with their surroundings as much as I would like them to. So here, I feel like you're outdoors a lot, even if it's hot and humid. You're outdoors, you're in the greenery, you're feeling nature every day, you're feeling the rain come down every day. So you feel that you're part of the planet.
Absolutely.
And I would like people to really do that more. And I want that to be a part of our education system. I want it to be part of people's recreational habits. It's just to feel like they're part of the planet, because then you become a steward for your planet. And so that's something I really think that we could learn a bit more from cultures that spend more time outdoors. I've been working with the King Abdulaziz and his companions Center for Innovation within Saudi Arabia. So that actually is an organization that focuses on younger students, helping them kind of develop their leadership, but specifically their kind of science and technology skills. And they compete in many different types of global and local competitions in science and engineering and technology. And so I'm writing a paper about the strength of social networks that these young people are creating by participating in international conferences, and how they can kind of utilize the relationships, their friendships, and their relationships with their mentors in order to broaden impact.
Really.
I'm also working on another paper looking similar to kind of what I was presenting at the conference, looking at how the new industries under Vision 2030 are creating new opportunities and reducing some of the stigma around certain training pathways for young people. So, you know, all of this requires a lot of face time with youth that are in training, as well as people that are running the training institutes. So it's been a fun year of a lot of data collection.
Wonderful. And you're at it, juggling so many balls at the same time.
Yes.
You're a superwoman, should I say that? You know, these days when we Google Saudi Arabia, what comes up is Vision 2030, the Winter Olympics,
right,
the exhibition, and above all, the visionary leadership and steering the ship in absolutely new waters of your Crown Prince. From a distance we see and we say, you know, you are a prince, you have everything going for you. I want to understand from you, someone who lives there, how is he like that?
I mean, he's young and ambitious, and I think that is the key difference. You know, our leadership has always been quite senior, and Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman is, he went to a school that we're all familiar with in Riyadh. You know, he interacted with just the community around him. He understands kind of how young people are thinking. And I believe that, you know, he has really, really big ambitions for the kingdom. And I think he knows that if you set the bar really high, you'll climb as high as you can get. So you might not get all the way up to that bar, but we're going to achieve something amazing. Yeah.